Welcome to Dark Ma, the channel where love story. They say marriage is built on trust, loyalty, and the promise of forever. But what happens when that promise is twisted into something deadly? What if the very words, "till death do us part"? Tonight, we dive into a case where a sacred bond was shattered, not by time or distance, but by betrayal, lies, and blood. This is not just a story about love gone wrong, it's about how intimacy can become a weapon, and how the person you trust most might also be the one who seals your fate. So, ask yourself, can a wedding vow transform into a death sentence? And more importantly, if it could happen to them, could it happen to anyone? This is true crime marriage. When wedding vows turn into a death sentence, it began like something out of a fairy tale. Two strangers, brought together by chance, quickly discovered a spark that felt impossible to ignore. Their laughter seemed to fit perfectly into each other's silences. In the early days, love was effortless. Late-night phone calls stretched until sunrise, stolen glances carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken promises. To everyone a oath, and when the day finally came, their wedding unfolded like a grand spectacle. The bride, radiant in white, glided down the aisle, while the groom waited with trembling hands and tearful eyes. Before family and friends, they vowed eternal devotion, swearing to cherish, protect, and remain by each other's side till. Applause roared, glasses cly. But sometimes, perfection hides cracks too small to see. Behind the smiles and the music, there were shadows, tiny signs that not everything was as flawless as it appeared. A lingering glance that lasted too long. A hesitation and a laugh. Secrets kept behind closed doors. Love can be fragile, like glass, beautiful, dazzling in the light, yet vulnerable to the smallest fracture. And in their story, that fracture would soon spread, tearing apart the very foundation of what everyone believed to be unbreakable. Because what looked like a fairy tale was already carrying the weight of a tragedy waiting to unfold. The honeymoon was supposed to be the crown jewel of their love story. After months of planning and dreaming, they escaped to a paradise resort, white sands, shimmering waters, and the soft glow of candles lighting up their nights. The world outside seemed to disappear. To everyone watching, this was the beginning of happily ever after. But happiness can be deceptive. Behind the closed doors of their luxury suite, whispers turned into arguments, and long silences replaced laughter. No one could predict that within days, their dreamlike journey would transform into a nightmare that would haunt headlines for years. On the third night, tragedy struck. One of them was found lifeless, cause unclear, circumstances suspicious. Was it an accident? A cruel twist of fate? Or something far darker, hidden beneath the veil of romance? The survivor's story was the first red flag. Their words trembled, filled with inconsistencies. In one version, it was a tragic slip in the bathroom. In another, it was sudden illness, a mysterious collapse no one could explain. And yet, the details shifted every time the survivor spoke, as if truth itself had become too heavy to bear. Rumors began to spread. Friends back home whispered about tension in the relationship long before the wedding. Family members recalled uneasy glances at the reception, the kind that seemed harmless then but now felt loaded with unspoken meaning. And as investigators dug deeper, darker questions surfaced. Was this marriage ever about love, or was it carefully constructed a facade hiding betrayal, greed, or revenge? Soon, accusations began to fly. The surviving spouse hinted that they had been manipulated, tricked into a marriage that was never real. "I was betrayed," they claimed, tears rolling down their face. But others pointed out that betrayal works both ways. Could those tears have been nothing more than performance, a desperate act to cover a calculated crime? What had begun as a union of two souls was now dissected in the harshest light. Toxic love, hidden affairs, financial motives, even the possibility of premeditated murder. The story that started with forever was now rewritten as a chilling tale of deception and death. Because in the shadows of this marriage, one question refused to fade. Was it love that died that night? Or was it murdered? When police arrived at the scene, the honeymoon suite was sealed off like a crime scene out of a film. The survivor, pale and trembling, repeated the same phrase, "It wasn't my fault." But the details didn't line up. Investigators quickly realized that this case would not be solved by first impressions. It demanded a ruthless search for truth. The first clues came from technology. Phone records revealed late-night messages, some filled with tenderness, others dripping with bitterness. A text sent just hours before the death read, "We need to talk, this can't go on." But who had sent it, and to whom? Surveillance cameras painted an even stranger picture. The couple entering the suite hand in hand, but only one emerging later, visibly shaken. Then came the witnesses. Hotel staff remembered muffled arguments behind closed doors. A neighbor in the next room swore they heard glass shattering and a woman's voice crying, "Stop!" Yet another guest insisted the couple seemed perfectly happy, toasting champagne by the pool just the night before. Each testimony contradicted the last, weaving a web of confusion instead of clarity. The survivors' own statements made things worse. In the first interview, they described a sudden collapse, like a tragic accident. Hours later, they spoke of a violent fall. By the third account, there were hints of self-defense, of being attacked first. Detectives couldn't ignore the pattern. Every new detail seemed designed to cover a different possibility. Truth was slipping through their fingers. As the story hit the media, the case exploded. Headlines screamed of betrayal, greed, and a honeymoon of horror. Commentators asked if this was doomed love or premeditated murder. Social media divided into camps. Some swore the survivor was a victim of cruelty. Others were convinced they were a calculating killer hiding behind tears. The line between tragedy and crime grew thinner by the day. And at the heart of it all was the chilling question: was this marriage a love story destroyed by fate, or a cold-blooded execution planned from the start? Months of investigation finally led to a courtroom where the survivor stood trial. Evidence was laid bare. Contradictory statements, suspicious financial motives, haunting witness testimonies. Yet despite all the noise, the verdict left many unsettled. Was justice truly served, or had the truth slipped away once again? For some, the sentence confirmed their worst fears. This was never love, only a carefully staged betrayal. For others, doubt remained. Could the survivor really have planned such a crime? Or were they themselves caught in a tragic chain of accidents and misunderstandings? And in places where no verdict had ever been reached, the silence was even more terrifying. An unanswered question hung in the air, heavier than any judgment. What really happened on that honeymoon night? Because in the end, love and betrayal wear the same face until the mask slips. One moment, it is devotion. The next, it is death. So, we leave you with this haunting question. Do you still believe in the vows of marriage, or do you see them as the first page of a tragedy waiting to unfold?